Welcome to the Kung Fu Mama Show. Today we have a guest, Tiffany Vaughan. She is a soul coach and a host of the podcast Hard, Beautiful Journey. And she has also been featured in Yahoo Finance as a top 8 podpreneurs. So congratulations and welcome to the show. Hi, Tiffany. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing really well. I'm so excited to be talking to you today about this. I'm really excited.
I'm so excited for our conversation today. I think that, we've all had our own journeys, but you in particular had a very hard and beautiful journey, which is also the name of your podcast. You've been through so much in your life. What do you think was like the most aha moment that turned everything around for you in your journey?
I think, the journey was very long, and it's just been recently in the last year and a half that I had an aha moment. And for a long time, I kept thinking and saying that, why me? Why was I dealt this hard, beautiful journey? And one day I actually just came to the realization that it was for another reason. It was so that I could help other people that were going through the same things that I had gone through, and to be of service to them and give them some encouragement and advice that might help them in their journey.
Could you tell us a little bit about that journey that you had to go through?
We have a lot of smoke in our area from forest fires.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. You have forest fires there in Alberta as well.
Yeah, we're right next door to British Columbia, so the smoke is all over here now. So it's making everybody's throats and eyes kind of sore.
Oh dear.
Tickle in my throat. All right. I will start at our infertility journey. My husband and I, we got married in 2003, and we wanted a family right away. So we started right away, and it wasn't working at all. And here in Canada, we have to wait a year of trying before you can seek fertility treatment advice. So we waited and we tried for a year. And after a year, our doctor finally referred us to the fertility clinic. And they did a bunch of tests on my husband and I, my husband, James. And there really wasn't anything at that time that they could see that was an issue. So they said, let's try and do a procedure called IUI, which is intrauterine insemination. And so that procedure is fairly easy in the fertility world, I guess you could say. You still have to take some drugs called Clomid, which make you really kind of crazy.
Oh my.
And it was not successapparently
Excuse me, now I'm sneezing.
I have transferred my smoke all the way over to you.
Apparently here in Taiwan.
Oh. Yeah. So it was not successful. The 3 IUI cycles were not successful at all, which absolutely blew my mind. So that procedure, if you don't know what it is, they literally take sperm and put it into your body, and like millions of them. And so it's like, how in the heck am I not getting pregnant with that many being put in me? I don't understand it. And so it's a very frustrating thing to go through when you can't understand what's not working in your body.
And especially when the doctor was saying that you guys are fine.
There's nothing wrong with you.
Anything.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's like, so then we went, so that was months and months and months worth, because you have to, take a break between each cycle.
Wow.
So then I did go in for some more ultrasounds, and they did find a little bit of moderate endometriosis in me. And so they thought maybe that might be a cause of my issues. And so I ended up having
Could you tell us a bit what that is?
That's a lining on your uterus that like it causes severe cramping.
Oh
and
my.
like really, really severe cramping and really bad periods. And it's been known to be a cause of infertility. So when that lining on your uterus is that thick or that needs to be scraped away, then that is what could help people get pregnant, is if they deal with their endometriosis. So I did go in, I did have what's called a laparoscopy surgery. And that seemed like it might help. But then we did find out that my husband also had sperm morphology issue. And what that is the sperm aren't completely formed wholly. So there could be a head and like a body, but no tail. Or it could have, you know what I mean? Like it just wasn't a whole
Complete.
sperm. Right. Yeah. And so there was millions and millions and millions of them, but not a lot of fully intact ones.
Oh,
and they didn't have the capacity, I guess, to actually make the journey and like swim, right? Because of their shape and their structure. So we were sent on to the big leagues, which is IVF, and which is scary because when you're growing up, you're like, as if like, I don't want to get pregnant when I'm a teenager, right? Or in your early 20s. And then all of a sudden you're in this sci-fi world, is what I called it, like with labs and everything's being done in a petri dish. And, you know, like, it's like, what, how are we here? How did we get here?
Right.
But there's so many people that are going through this that it actually made things feel a little bit better, but it also is a very lonely journey when people are really afraid or ashamed to talk about it when you're sitting in those waiting rooms, right? So we go through the first IVF cycle, and I was 33 at the time, 32 or 33. And they gave me medication for my age and for my situation. And my body didn't produce anything. The doctors said that I was producing at the age of like a mid-40s woman. So they upped my medication dose to the highest absolutely possible. And
do you mind me asking how old you were at that time?
32 or 33. So I was not old by any means when we started, but it just, my body just, it wouldn't produce follicles, and nobody understands why it just wouldn't. I did, after they upped my dose, I actually did end up getting a few, but they actually pulled us into a room on one of my ultrasound days when my husband came with me. He normally wasn't coming with me to all of them because there were just so many when you go through IVF.
Oh my gosh.
He had to work, and so did I. So, but this one particular day, he came with me, and they pulled us into the room, and you know, when they closed the door, that things are not good. And they said, your body is just not responding the way that it should for your age and for the amount of medication that you've been given. So you have a choice of stopping the process right now and starting again in a few months. And by this time, we had already been in it for like 2 or 3 years, right? We were just like devastated to get this news that we've spent all this money, I've taken all of these drugs, and now we have to stop. Like, this is crazy. But I was at the point mentally and everything that I was done. I was just like, I would have said, okay, let's call her a day. Like, no more. But my husband was there that day, and he said, no, we're going ahead, and we'll see what we get. And thank God we did, because that was how we got our daughter.
Oh my gosh.
Because he was there and he said, we're going. And I only ended up with 3 embryos, which is not good for my age. There was actually a lady next to me in the recovery room who was my age, and she got 21 or 22
oh my
embryos.
Gosh.
and I
Wow.
got 3. And so like, it's very, and then you don't know if you're going to actually be successful once they
Right.
transfer them in. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So the fact that we ended up with our daughter is a miracle, and it was
Yes.
definitely meant to be. Right.
Yes.
But then, so we transferred 2 in, and then we were left with 1. And when we went to go and use that one a couple of years later, it didn't unthaw. It died. So we were left with no more embryos, but we did have our daughter. So we were super grateful about that. Right. But then we were left with a decision to, okay, what are we going to do now? Are we going to just have the one child, or do we want to adopt, or do we want to go through this process again? What do you want to do? And James's parents, because it's so expensive, gave us the money to do it. And we went through the process again. And this time, I don't know if having a baby had like cleared out my system or what, but my body responded way better than the first time.
Thank God.
And I ended up with 8 embryos. And for my age, that was really good. And 2 of them were what they classified as rock star embryos, meaning you're going to get twins with these, like for sure. And they're just that high quality and they're really good. There's actually a possibility that they could split and you could have 4. So are you
Wow.
ready for that? And we're just like, whoa, I don't know. But anyway, they put the 2 in and they didn't make it. Not at all. And so you go in and you have this idea that they're going to make it because they're rock stars,
Oh God.
and they don't
That's
make it.
so disheartening. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
But we were still left with some. So they were frozen, and frozen embryos are known to not be as successful sometimes, and because of the thaw process. But we went ahead, they put 2 in, and we got 2 boys, twins.
Oh,
Twin boys. Yeah. So all 3 of our kids are IVF. They are all a miracle. And it was a very long journey to get them.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we are grateful every single day for them. And yeah, anybody that goes through that, I have so much compassion for. It's a tough journey.
And you're so strong to go through that. Just listening to your story makes me feel so, I feel so much for you and your family, especially.
Hi.
Hello. Kylie feels for you guys too. She
Oh,
wants
thank
to meet your
you.
kiddos.
So
So
cute.
I was wondering, do you mind telling us exactly how much it costs
Well, in Canada,
for the
it's
first
actually
one?
in Canada, it's a lot cheaper than the United States. That's for sure.
Mhm.
In Canada, well, that's the other thing I didn't say is because of my the stuff that was going on in my body and the stuff that was going on with James, we actually had to use every single service that the fertility clinic provides.
Wow.
Because so there's something called ICSI, which it's an acronym for basically where they take the sperm and they actually make it go into the egg. Like they guide the sperm right to the egg so that there's no chance that it won't actually make it there.
Mhm.
So they had to do that in our situation because of the sperm morphology issue.
I see.
But then they also use something called assisted embryo hatching, which basically they watch it and they make sure that it actually hatches and gets to the process where it can become an embryo. And so all of those things cost a lot of money. So in Canada, or in Alberta anyway, where I am, it was about $15,000 for a full round.
Wow.
IVF. Yeah. But in the States, it can be upwards of 50,000. So we are
Oh my
very
goodness.
grateful for what it does cost here. But
Wow.
that is why there is such a high twin rate, is because of the cost of IVF, because people just want to go in and get their baby or babies and be done with it.
Right.
So that is why they encourage they encourage no more than 2 embryos being transferred at one time. That's it.
I see.
Yeah.
So you said it took 2 to 3 years for the first one. Is that only one round of IVF took 2 to 3 years?
It actually took 5 years to get our daughter. So when we started the IVF process, it was 2 more years. So it took 5 years to get our daughter, and then another 5 years to get our boys. So 10 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, so how often are you visiting the clinic within those 5 years? I mean, I feel like that could be hundreds
when you're in the process and like you're a patient in the clinic and you're trying, you're there a lot, especially when you're in the heat of the program. You're there every day getting blood work and ultrasounds done. So,
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I mean, how long does that period last for every day? I mean, over 5 years, every day you have to go in?
No, this is just during the when your cycle is happening, like when you're that month, like you're going every day or every other day, depending on your protocol, so they can check on you, right? And check how your follicles are growing and all of that. So it's a big time commitment.
Yes.
For sure. Like your employer needs to be understanding. So it's a lot of time, especially for the woman, because she's the one who has to go in for all the tests, right? So, hi.
Kylie is popping in and out of our podcast, guys, for those of you who are listening, just so you know. So you go in for like 1 full month during the time that you are that your body is in the right state, correct? And throughout those 5 years, they're constantly monitoring you to see when your cycle is ready, I imagine.
Well, when you're actually in their clinic in the IVF program, they're monitoring, when your cycle is, and it all depends on when there's availability as well. Because there's so many patients that you don't automatically get in a particular month. Like it depends on how many patients they have that particular month when you'll get in. So like you could want to get in January and they won't phone you until October, right? Like it's not your choice, that was the other hard part, is the waiting and just like, when are we going to be able to get in and get this done and start the process? And in the meantime, you're trying naturally and it's not working either. So it's like, it's disheartening, right? For it to always not be working. So
what gave you the strength to go in to do this whole process that took 5 years to do that for your 2 boys?
Well, for our daughter, it was sheer determination, and I'm a stubborn mule. Like I'm probably one of the stubbornest people I know. And it's when I have my head set on something, I want to achieve it. And especially something like being a mom, like isn't every woman supposed to naturally be able to be a mom? Right? That was in my head the whole time. Like, why is this not working? I'm going to make this work. And so that was why. But there were many times in that 5 years where I did feel like giving up, because it was just like, we thought, no, we'll just be single, or like just no kids. We'll just travel the world. We'll definitely save a lot of money. But we got 2 dogs. We treated them like our kids. And like it was a long, hard 5 years until we got her, for sure. And then the next 5 years, it's a little bit different once you've had one, because at least you have one.
Right.
I experienced carrying a child and delivering a child and like being a mom to so but it was still like, when you know that you want to add more, it was the longing is still there. It doesn't go away,
right?
But it's not the absolute desperation feeling when you
Mhm.
don't have any to begin with,
Right.
right? Especially when at that time, all of my friends were having their babies.
Mhm.
And it was like, oh my goodness, I can't even handle hearing anybody else's
Right.
news right now, right? So,
Right. That's difficult. That's
yeah,
very
for
difficult.
sure. Hmm.
Oh, what kind of advice would you give to parents who might be thinking about doing IVF?
I think the main thing is the thing that I always tell people that are thinking about it is lean on other people and talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when we went through it the first time for our daughter, I didn't talk to anybody about it except for my mom, right? But it's a very lonely journey, and it's very I don't know, there was a lot of shame, I guess, in the first time around, because I didn't feel like my body was doing what it should be doing. And so knowing that there's other people out there that you can talk
Mm-hmm.
to about it
Mm-hmm.
definitely would help.
And do you feel like a lot of that shame was like because of the surroundings, or it was just in your head thinking, oh, like, we should all be able to have,
It was all
kids.
my own internal, and that's the crazy part is I never ever heard external messages that should have made me feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it was all internal. It was all, I think, the way that, you're raised, and or that you just see, like, people just have babies. What's the
Mm-hmm.
big deal?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And you're told, like, growing up, don't get
Right.
pregnant when you're a teenager. And,
Right.
so it's like, it must be easy to have a baby if they keep saying don't get pregnant when you're a teenager,
Right.
right?
Right.
Must be so easy. So then when it comes down to it and you actually start trying and it's not happening, it's like, wow, what is happening?
Right.
So it's
It's
got to be me. Obviously, it's my body, and this is very, very shameful. So it it definitely was not a fun period of time. That's for sure.
And how is that part of the journey translated into you doing this podcast?
Oh, well, after we had our three children, um, our daughter is 13 now, and our boys are 8. And when they were all in the 4 to 5 year old range, all of them started to display very, very, very challenging behaviors. And
Oh
obviously,
my.
first our daughter was up, and I knew from when she was a baby that something was a little bit off. And she was very, very high maintenance.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, what? I couldn't even go have a shower without her like screaming bloody murder. Like it was
Oh my.
intense, right? And so anyway, at about age 4, 4.5, she got diagnosed with ADHD. And she
Oh,
has the combination, so hyperactive and impulsivity.
wow.
And so that was an interesting diagnosis. But at that time, 4.5 years old, 5 years old, we just had the twins. And
Wow.
we were so exhausted from just having twins, like twin babies, that getting that diagnosis at that time was just like, okay, sure, whatever, because we were just so tired, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk to her doctor about, what we need to do, if we need to put her on medication, or we'll talk about medication. Like, we were just zombies is how I described that time. So looking back, we didn't really give it the attention that we should have when we got that diagnosis.
Wow.
When the boys were 4 years old, they also were diagnosed with ADHD and ODD, oppositional defiance disorder. So all
Wow.
3 of our kids were diagnosed with the same ADHD, ODD. And 2 of them, our daughter and one of our sons, is on the severe end, the severe spectrum.
Oh my goodness.
And so that has been, so we went through the infertility battle, is what I call it, to then be handed a parenting challenge like I never, ever thought I would have. And that was very hard for James and I to navigate. And in the infertility process and then going through this parenting struggle, I actually had 2 complete mental breakdowns throughout those years.
Completely understandable. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And one of them, actually, I ended up in our closet in our bedroom, hiding behind the clothes in our closet, because first of all, I was trying to hide from my kids because I couldn't handle dealing with them anymore at that moment. And that is when I thought about ending my life at that moment, because I couldn't deal with everything that had gone on over the last 12 years. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. So it was at that moment that I had the aha that we talked about, where I was like, okay, why do I keep getting dealt this? And my husband, like, why us? And so I actually reached out and found a counselor, and I had actually talked to a couple of them, but it just didn't click with me and them. But then I found one, and I call her my Jenna. Her name is Jenna, and I call her my Jenna because she actually saved my life, like quite literally. And it was in one of the sessions with her where she said, you're supposed to do something with all of this. But that was like a year and a half before the podcast idea ever came about. But I knew that I knew that this was meant to happen for a reason. And when I was going through it, I didn't see that. But at that moment, when I was behind those clothes, I was like, okay, this can't be happening for nothing. Right. And so one day I was up late at night, and I ordered a microphone off of Amazon, and I don't know why I did. And it showed up, and I was like, I think I'm going to start a podcast, and I have no idea how to do it or what I'm going to do and what I'm going to say. But I have this feeling like I need to talk about our story and our journey. And if it only ends up being 2 or 3 episodes, at least our story is out. Right. Yeah. And so that's where my vision was for the first 4 episodes, take 4 episodes and tell everybody what's been going on and what our hard, beautiful journey has been. And then in episode 5, I brought in James to get his side of everything that I talked about in the first 4. And which was really good to get that feedback from him on how he felt it all went. Right. And then from there, it actually just ended up being interviewing other people and their hard, beautiful journeys. And now I'm coming up to the end of season 3, and it's been amazing. Absolutely amazing. Just giving people the opportunity to use their voice and share their stories as well.
That's amazing. That's an incredible journey. Did you find anything interesting when you were interviewing your husband, James? Were there things that you didn't know about his side? Was it surprising? I find,
I knew that the infertility, when the men have to go in and do their business into a cup, that it's hard for them, right? Like it's embarrassing. But I didn't really realize how hard it is for them to deal with that piece. Like when, there's an expectation for them to actually do something and produce, it's not as easy as you think. So that was surprising. And that he really thought I was very, very, very large. When I was pregnant with our twins, I knew he knew I was big, but he made it very clear that I got very big with the boys. So it's like, wow, interesting.
That's good to know.
Good to know. Yeah. So, but for the most part, we had a lot of the same, I don't know, memories, I guess, and the same feelings about things.
Mhm.
But there was a couple, yeah, he made me laugh for sure, interviewing him on that one. Goodness. Highly recommend interviewing your husband sometimes. You never know what you're going to get.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, I know. I still learn things about my husband that I don't know about him like every day. And it's insane.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
So, oh, wow. That's just such an amazing journey. Do you have any advice for those who have kids with ADHD?
Oh my Lord, we could be here for a long time.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think the big thing looking back is just knowing that it's not something that they can control. It's something that when a child with ADHD is overstimulated in any way, like there's nothing that you can do until they are back into a regulated state. And there are so many times where we were fighting a battle that it just was getting worse and worse and worse because we were getting elevated when they were getting elevated. And it was just like this vicious cycle, right? Where when you know strategies that, like, for example, I'll give you an example. My son, when about 3 years ago now, 3 years ago, when he was getting elevated or getting agitated, I would actually grab him and give him like not a hug, but like just give him pressure. And then I would actually look him right in the eyes so that he would have to focus his eyes on me. And that is kind of when he realized like, oh, okay, I'm safe. Mom's here. I'm okay. And so like, there's a whole bunch of strategies that I've learned over the years. And the thing is each child is a little bit different too in what they respond to. So and sometimes they all feed off of each other. So sometimes our house is a little chaotic, but in my podcast in episode 7 and episode 9, I go through like a ton of strategies and information about ADHD that I learned from actually a doctor in British Columbia who has ADHD himself.
Oh.
And he has a child that has ADHD. And so when the boys were diagnosed and now I had 3 kids with ADHD, that is when I said, I need to understand everything about this and how to parent these kids. And that's when I found Dan. And I outline everything that he taught us in episode 7 and 9.
Okay, great. So for those of you listening that have children with ADHD, be sure to tune into Tiffany's podcast for those tips.
And it's also on my website as well. There's some resources on my website for those 2 episodes that can definitely help any parent with kids with ADHD.
I see. And could you just tell us a little bit about what a soul coach is?
Absolutely. And it's new for me. I'm just finishing my training on it. Basically, what a soul coach does is help somebody realize what they're meant to be doing with their life and what their purpose here on earth is, and just to be there as a support to walk them through some of the things that they've been through in their life. And I'm so excited to actually get started on doing it. And there's a bunch of different modalities that you can work through with a client. Like there's NLP and there's tapping, and there's a whole bunch of different things that we use. But it's I actually hired a soul coach last year, and that's how I found out about it. And that is when my life absolutely changed for the better, is when I actually started working with a soul coach. And it's been amazing. Amazing.
Is that the same person as a counselor, or they're different that you?
No, a counselor, here in Canada anyway, is a counselor is like a psychologist for that has to go for like years and years and years of training, right? And a soul coach is like, I've been doing the training for about a year now, but a psychologist here in Canada, they have to go for many years. And
right.
Yeah, so they are different for sure.
But what made you reach out to a soul coach?
I actually found her through another business group that I was part of last year. Okay. And she was in that group. And then I heard her on a podcast, and I just loved what she was talking. It was just like, oh my goodness, this is the person that I need to be talking with and working with. And it was like everything just fell into place, that she was my coach, and now she's training me to be one as well.
And so what is the most, have you also been coaching other people as well?
I haven't. No, my coaching.
Oh, you're in training. Oh, you're in training right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
But amazing. I do. The funny thing is so I'm a professional accountant actually by day.
Okay.
Yeah. I am a CPA, and
wow.
So I've been in management roles pretty much my whole career. And the whole time that I've been doing these roles, I've actually been coaching people the whole time, but I didn't really know that I was doing it. Like, right. And I don't mean like teaching them accounting. I mean, like, they'd come into my office and they would want to talk about this problem that they're having with their life, or what should they do here? And you know what I mean? And like, I would coach them through it. But I just thought I was just talking. And now looking back, it's like, oh no, I've been doing it all along. Now I'm just actually formalizing it, I guess. Right. But I do some business coaching and other stuff on the side as well.
I see. I was just wondering, because I thought maybe you could share some of your experience as if it's been very rewarding to be a coach, or if anything that you've influenced, someone that you've coached in your life, and you found that quite impactful.
I am actually coaching a woman in New York City, and I'm coaching her. I actually I built her website, but I'm actually coaching her to really understand her potential when it comes to, she's a really amazing cook, a chef. And she wants to do more of that. And she's also an artist. So I'm helping her really understand how amazing she is at those things, and giving her the confidence that she needs to keep going, because that's a big problem for some people, is they know what they're passionate about and they know they want to do something, but they just don't know how to actually get it going. And sometimes you just need that one person to just help guide you. And so that's what I'm doing with her. And I've seen amazing progress with her. And she's just, she lights up every time I see her now. Like we get on Zoom calls all the time, and she's just one of my dearest friends now. So I find so much joy in connecting with people that way. It's fantastic.
Amazing. And I'm so glad to be connecting with you today. I think you've touched my heart, and I'm sure many of the listeners that we have today. Do you have one piece of advice before we go for all the listeners out there? Have you had to choose one?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My big thing is use your voice, ignite your soul. And what that means for me is when I was hiding behind those clothes, I knew I needed to start talking. I knew I needed to start telling people what was going on in my life. And as soon as I started talking and sharing my story and sharing my struggles, my life changed, like changed in ways that I can't even describe. And I actually describe it as my soul woke up from a really, 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 really deep sleep. And so that's why I call it use your voice, ignite your soul, because when you do start talking and you do start sharing your stories, amazing things can happen.
Amazing. Thank you so much for coming on this podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your story. For our listeners out there, be sure to tune into your podcast, The Heart Beautiful Journey. I really do want to listen to all of the wonderful things you have to say there. And yes, so I just had such an amazing time here. So thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
And for those of you guys, don't forget to subscribe to at Kung Fu Mama Show at Facebook, IG, and check out our YouTube at Starring Sarah Chang. Thank you so much.
Bye.